The biggest headlines went to GOP frontrunner Donald Trump, who called for a plan to ban Muslims from entering the country.
For a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
We begin there with our panel. Linda Osberg-Braun is a South Florida immigration attorney. She's been counsel for the U.S. Immigration Service and also a federal public defender. Nezar Hamze is the executive director of the Florida's Council on American Islamic Relations, which advocates for Muslim civil rights. He's also a Broward Sheriff's deputy. Josh Bratter is an immigration attorney with a background in international law and also a law professor. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to start right there with what everyone's talking about, this Donald Trump ban all Muslims from the country temporarily statement. Universally panned, really. But let's talk about whether, Linda, is it even constitutional? Is it even legal?
Absolutely not. However, we need to take the elements of what he is stirring up, and we have to take what, if anything, is valid. And the only point that is valid is the vetting, the intelligence, and the background that the United States must conduct in and outside of the United States. And that's the only point of validity relating to his statements.
So saying all of those things, is there a chance, Josh, that you could ban a class of people?
It's interesting, and it's somewhat ironic to know that in the beginning of our law courses, he began speaking about a doctrine of law that's called the plenary powers doctrine, which invests the Congress with the unfettered discretion to make determinations as it relates to immigration. These are cases that were emanating from the 1800s, and today we see the very language that was used in these cases being discussed and justifying, legitimizing this policy, and that is the plenary power doctrine and the ability to exclude a class of individuals as it was done in the 1800s with the Chinese individuals.
Nezar, I know we put you in a position to speak for an entire community of people, but you do have many tentacles in the Muslim community. You are very involved and you are an advocate. And what is the reaction to this?
Well, the Muslim community doesn't like it. The American Muslim community doesn't deserve this. I can tell you that on the ground, the reaction that we're getting, typically during a terrorist event, internationally or domestically, the American Muslim community faces the backlash. Now we have to fear something else. When Donald Trump goes on national TV and says that he's going to ban all Muslims, we also get the immediate backlash. There have been cases in Florida, throughout the entire country as a matter of fact, but specifically in Florida, where mosques are vandalized, Muslim homes are shot at, people are getting death threats. This is happening because of the rhetoric that Donald Trump is saying on national TV.
And despite an almost universal panning of his words, you hear cheers in the background when he says it. We found ABC Network old footage of then-President Jimmy Carter, a Democrat in the White House, in April of 1980, who was in the midst of an Iran hostage crisis, and he went on television to make an announcement about his moves toward Iran. Listen to this footage from 1980.
And a virtual shutting off of all Iranian immigration into this country by refusing new visas to Iranian citizens. Moreover, the president warned these 4 steps be just the beginning.
All of us. The steps I have ordered today are those that are necessary now.
So he was cutting ties with Iran and banning an entire nation's people. Many Iranians at the time did not support the Ayatollah, were afraid of political persecution, yet they were among those who were about to be banned into the United States. What's the difference here?
You know, I'm not really sure there is a difference, and the reality is that the United States government has a tradition in times of conflict of using immigration law as an instrument for political ends. This is no different than the Korematsu trials and the Japanese internment. This is no different than Haitian interdiction, special registration for Muslims subsequent to 2001. I think the use of heavy-handed immigration policy as a political end is something that has been used historically and traditionally in times of conflict.
Linda?
Immigration immigration law has been broken for a long time. I've been telling my clients for the last 16 years that something's going to change, and I say it really is going to now. It needs to change now, and it needs to be workable for the United States. It needs to be a priority in our country, because the way our country is about national security and the economy. And immigration, of course, it's interweaved, but immigration and the good people who deserve to be here and the good people who help our economy need a way to immigrate and serve the country. It's time to fix this broken system.
You know, with the headlines now, though, when you talk about it's time for the good people to be able to come in and bad people to stay out, I can't help but look at the headlines of the couple in San Bernardino, and prior to their unleashing mass murder, they were considered good people. They were a suburban couple, they had friends, they had co-workers, they had a baby. I mean, what are the ramifications now of this particular incident with this couple vis-a-vis weeding out good people from bad?
I think it's important, being a member of the law enforcement community, that we have to stick to our values as a country. Freedom and security. And that means we need to focus on criminal behavior, not on one's religion or what they believe in. And to put a ban on all Muslims is targeting a religion and targeting the followers of one particular religion. It's a waste of resources, and it doesn't make us any more safe. It makes us less safe.
You know, the House on Tuesday voted to start the tightening of the visa waiver, and I'm sure our audience knows what the visa waiver system is. Just in general, friendly countries, if you're there, whether it's a traveler or an immigrant, you get to come here without a visa. So what the House did on Tuesday, Josh, was to decide that people who are coming from certain countries, Syria, Iran, Iraq, a couple more, can't come without a visa even from friendly countries. Is that the start of something bigger?
It could be, and the reality is this, that is the concern. The concern is that in a spasm of xenophobia, the country begins to implement policies that are misguided in their implementation, as opposed to directing these efforts towards security considerations. They start to have far-reaching misguided implications in employment, family, and, as Linda suggested, some other the well-meaning, purposeful immigration concepts.
Well, when you look at what happened in Paris, I mean, first of all, European citizens were the ones plotting terror, and those are the places from where people come without visas. What is wrong with addressing, now as a reaction, what's wrong with addressing a problem where there are people in countries that do not need visas to come here, and making sure that that is not a loophole?
We have to step up the enforcement aspect of the visas, though. When you fill out the form to get a visa, the question is are you a terrorist? Have you engaged in terrorism? Nobody is going to say yes.
Has anyone ever?
How do we, not that I know of, how do we realistically find and gather the intelligence both inside and outside of the country? Because this couple in San Bernardino, they showed signs of being terrorists. How do we, and maybe from a law enforcement standpoint, how is the United States going to vet this? I think the visa system has to step up in the enforcement aspect, because those few people are ruining it for the rest of the country.
I think it's important to put it into context. If we're talking about people getting visas, that means they're living abroad. And that's going to be a question for the experts of the people that live abroad. I can definitely speak to what the American Muslim community and law enforcement is doing here to deal with these types of issues. So we have built a coalition institutionally for many, many years, since 2011 in South Florida, and many other communities throughout the country that are dealing with these types of behaviors that you're saying there's little indicators and signs of radicalization. And the community, every single time they see these types of issues, they work amongst themselves in the community, and they have a relationship with law enforcement, and they report it. And that's how they dealt. Most of the convictions that you are getting, that you're seeing of these plans of radicalization or terrorist activity, they come from tips from the American Muslim community, because the American Muslim community knows that terrorists don't care who they kill. They'll kill Muslims first because they don't think that they're Muslim, right?
The immigration attorney you have on the CAIR staff.
Sure.
What's been the difference in the last, real quickly before we go to break, what's the difference in the last couple of weeks trying to obtain visas or entrance for people?
It's a very cumbersome process, the immigration process, to start with. So now all of this extra scrutiny, obviously, putting the brakes on everything. It's becoming very difficult for the immigration attorney that we have on staff to do his job.
All right, so there are, what I want to talk about is different cases and levels of visas. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break and we're really going to take a deep dive into what visas are available and to whom. Stay with us.